All right. So today, a little quick agenda before I jump in. Give you a quick introduction, a little bit more about myself, and then we're going to talk about symbol maps, filled maps, dual axis maps, mapping a background image, Mapbox Studio integration, path maps, and polygon maps. I'm going to talk about maps today, I promise you. Make sure nobody left. All right, we're still good. That being said, I do want to be clear that what I'm going to show you is going to be completely doable in Tableau. There's a lot of even some might call cooler maps that you can do with tools like Alteryx or Adobe Illustrator, and those are great tools. But the last time I checked, this was the Tableau conference, so it's very important to me to show you what you can do with Tableau. And yes, we're going to be starting very basic. In fact, I'm going to start with the most basic map possible called a symbol map. But all of these maps kind of build up on each other. I'm going to show you the progression all the way to, by 2:45, you're going to know how to build this. This was actually the Tableau Public Visit of the Year last year. This is the cost of attending the World Series in 2015 when the Royals were in it. And so you're going to be able to do this with just Excel and Tableau. That's what I'm going to show you how to do by the end of this session. Just a little bit more about myself for those who I haven't had a chance to meet yet. Again, my name is Ryan Sleeper. If you're on Twitter, love to connect there. I'm at OSM Guy. And I won't read these line by line for you because Kyle helped me out this time and did quite a few of these. But here are some of my Tableau credentials. The one in particular that I really want to point out to you is that first line. This is what's called a book. I wrote 100 different blog posts that's now getting converted to a book. And I just recently found out that it was accepted for publication by O'Reilly Media, so this will be in print. But for now, I'm allowed to have this website up there, tableau201.com, which has all 100 posts. And they've already told me this is coming down very soon. So I'm hint, hint, nudge, nudge, please go check it out. And in fact, every single map I'm going to show you today, there's a tutorial up there on how to do it. So if you go to the map section, the chart section of tableau201.com, you'll see it. So I just mentioned Tableau Public Visit of the Year. In 2013, I won Tableau's IronViz Championship. For those of you, I heard today at the keynote that a lot of you are new to the conference. I definitely encourage you to check that out. It's a great time, and it's kind of Tableau's Super Bowl. There's 3 finalists that compete against each other, and it's tomorrow afternoon. I want to say 4:45. Double check me on that, but it's a great time, and I'd get into it if you can. This is my 4th time speaking at the Tableau conference. I also am a frequent contributor to their blogs, and I founded and lead the Kansas City Tableau user group. And I only had to do those 12 or so small things, and this year they awarded me with Tableau Zen Master, which is kind of their highest honor. So very excited to get that this year. In fact, I was so excited I added like 4 or 5 transitions to this. That actually wasn't a joke. Just bear with me here. Okay. That being said, and yes, I'm proud of this. I've been working with Tableau for a long time, and it's great to build all this up. But I'm about to share my 2 favorite slides of any time I ever give a presentation. And that's, despite all of that I've done in the last 7 years, my learning curve when I got started with Tableau, I would say looked kind of like this, where that long flat line was probably about 2 years or so. This was in 2010. There were not the resources there are today. You know, back in my day, they didn't have what you kids have. There was one book. It was about 50 pages long, and it was kind of hard to learn Tableau. So I like to give some purpose for all the presentations that I give, and this is how I think your learning curve could be by attending presentations like this, conferences like this. And it's my objective today to give everybody in this room something that they can take away and start using right away when they get back to the office. So let's do it. I'm going to jump into some maps. Before we get into building a couple of these out, I just wanted to give a little bit more background on what's kind of happening behind the scenes in Tableau that allows us to create these maps. So with everybody's data, when they connect to their data with Tableau, there's at least these 3 fields: measure names, measure values, and number of records. Those will be in every single data set you ever work with. They're generated by Tableau itself. In addition to those 3, if there's also a field that Tableau recognizes as being a geographic dimension, it will add 2 more generated fields for you: latitude and longitude. And these are identified, and I'm going to be jumping back and forth between Tableau a little bit. These generated fields are identified in italics. So if there's geographic fields in here, and I'm just connecting using the sample Superstore data set. So I know that these sessions aren't very conducive to hands-on training, but if you want to do this when you get back to the office, all these trainings are based on the sample Superstore data set. That data set comes with country, state, city, and zip code information. All of these are identified as geography by Tableau, which is what this globe icon means. Because Tableau sees that those are geography, we've also got latitude and longitude down here. Note that they're in italics, and in parentheses it says those are generated for us. So the first map we're going to create is just the basic symbol map. To do this, I'm going to just double click on state. And as long as you have an internet connection, Tableau will load a background image of a map. So in about 3 seconds there, we did something that was very powerful, and this is why maps are so powerful to us in Tableau. It comes pre-packaged with thousands and thousands of locations all over the world so that we can just double click on state, and as long as it's recognized by Tableau, it can draw the map for us. And this is great because if your boss isn't familiar with Tableau, you could tell them that you looked up all these coordinates, you stayed up nights and weekends and put this map together for them. But that's how easy it is to make a symbol map. From here, you can encode symbols just like you would any other dimension on a view. So if I wanted to say size the symbols, which are currently circles, by sales, I'm just going to drag sales over to the size marks card. And now the larger the sales, the larger the circle. There's some additional ways you can format these symbol maps. If you go to Map and Map Layers, the first thing you can do is there's 3 map styles right out of the box with Tableau: light, normal, and dark. So if you wanted a slightly different view, a few slides later I'm going to show you 14 additional styles, but right out of the box there's these 3 styles available in Tableau. You can also make the map as kind of detailed or undetailed as you want by toggling these layers on and off. So if you wanted to kind of clean up the map, you could turn the land cover off, some of the borders if you want, whatever you want to do there. And then it even comes pre-populated with several data layers, things like census information, where you could put this as a background layer if you wanted to compare your sales to, say, the population in a certain state. Those are also available to you. All right, so that's a symbol map. The next kind of map that we're going to create is called a filled map. And a filled map is actually a mark type. So I could have either, if I started a symbol map and I wanted to convert it to a filled map, I could go here to the mark shelf and change the mark type to a filled map. That's one way to do it. I could have also used show me. It's one of the show me options. If I click state, go over here to show me, filled map is this one here. And then from here, just like with the symbols, I could encode those filled areas by something. Either I could color them by sales, maybe this time I'll color it by region, which is a categorical dimension in this Superstore data set. Right, so that's a filled map. The next kind of map I'm going to show you is a dual axis map. So basically what we're going to do is combine these 2 maps together. To do that, I'm going to hold the control key. This is a shortcut that I like to use a lot of times. If you hold the control key down and click on any pill, that's the slang term for the fields that are on the view, it will create an exact duplicate of it, so you don't have to look it up again. So if I'm going to hold down the control key, drag latitude right next to itself, and at this point what we have is the exact same map right on top of each other. But sometimes it's really valuable, and as we saw in the keynote this morning, they're making some developments to help you do this even quicker, but there's a way to do what they showed this morning even pretty easy already in Tableau. So at this point, we've got 2 rows, it's the exact same map, but what's important about having these 2 pills up here now, both on the row shelf, is that I can edit them independently of each other. So I can navigate to the second mark shelf, for example, and maybe I'll say I no longer want to size this by sales. I'll change the mark type to be a filled map instead of a symbol map. And I will color the bottom map by region so that I'm replicating that filled map I built on sheet 2. So now we've got 2 different analyses. One for sales by state as a symbol map. One on the bottom is a filled map colored by region. To create a dual axis map or have these maps lay right on top of each other, you simply click into the second occurrence of that pill and check this box to make it dual axis. And right now they're laying right on top of each other, so you might notice those symbols you can't see very well. That's just because the filled map is on top of the symboled map. If I want to reorder those, I can just drag one in front of the other. Maybe I'll make the symbols white so they pop off the page a little bit more. And we've got a dual axis map. I've seen really good live use cases of this map type. You might want to map out where your competitors are on one layer, and then where how your sales are doing per zip code or city, whatever granularity, and compare the two. See if there's pockets where your competitor is and we're underselling, or if we found a niche that we should really try to dominate. I've seen this work really well in a corporate setting. All right, so we covered symbol map, filled map, and dual axis map. Now we're going to start getting into some custom map options. So those are kind of right out of the box. You should be able to use those right away. You can practice with the sample superstore data set. But now onto some custom maps. And the reason you can map anything in Tableau is maps in Tableau are actually a scatter plot. So if I were to go back here to my symbol map, I can prove that to you by kind of washing out the background. So I'll go to map, map layers, and wash this out. So what's happening is it's actually a scatter plot. If you're not familiar with that chart type, it deals with at least two measures. Those two measures make up the y-axis and the x-axis. And that's actually how maps work in Tableau. And that's why it's no coincidence, even though these are generated and they sound kind of categorical or dimension-based, these map coordinates are down here in the measures shelf, and that's not a coincidence. It's because they act as measures on our view. So latitude makes up our y-axis, and longitude makes up our x-axis, and then it's simply plotting the combination of those two things at each location, putting a dot, and it's a scatter plot, and then it puts just an image of a map behind it. So that's kind of the secret sauce there, but what's neat about it is because that's how Tableau looks at maps, you can literally map anything you want. If you've got an image, so this is one of our clients, the Atlanta Hawks, this is Phillips Arena down in Atlanta, and as long as we had an image of their arena, we were able to look up the x and y coordinates and plot a point in each one of their sections. Once we have a map like this, we can encode those symbols, just like we did above in my first example, but we can encode those symbols and size them or color them by, say, attendance in a certain section or price per section. There's a lot of real-life use cases for this. So the first custom map I'm going to show you, just to wrap our heads around it and show you how this is done, we're going to map this baseball diamond. And to create and again, I'm going to just try to stick to Excel and Tableau to show you that anybody can do this stuff. What I recommend when I'm starting with a new background image is I look up the properties of that image to see what the width and height of that image is. And I make this very basic Excel file that just has whatever points I'm going to plot. In this case, we're going to plot the positions on a baseball diamond, and then the x coordinate and the y coordinate. And I put the first row in there. It kind of helps get me started, and I just call it lookup, and the x represents the maximum x value, and the y represents the maximum y value. So I'm going to move to a new sheet and connect to this data source. Custom background images are per data source. So I'm creating this map connected basically to this almost blank Excel file instead of the sample superstore data set. Notice it's throwing me into the data editor. There's nothing in there, just this one row. I'm going to go to this sheet. And now I'm going to map this background image. And it lives under Map, Background Images. Again, they're per data source. So I need to find that baseball diamond coordinate data source. Go find the image that I want to map. It's this baseball diamond. And this is fairly intuitive. If I ever get tripped up on anything, it's remembering to change what is representative of the X field and what's representative of the Y field. To get around that, I call them X and Y to make it very easy for me. But they're not always, right? You could have latitude, longitude. So you need to come in here and tell Tableau X means the X, Y means the Y. And then you just put in the maximum dimensions. That baseball diamond image is 800 wide, so I'm going to go 0 to 800 on the x-axis and 0 to 677 on the y-axis. I'm going to hit OK, hit OK. Now I'm going to put the x field on Notice when I just double click by default, it put X on the rows. I need to swap those. There's a one-click swap option. So I've got X on the column shelf, which creates the X-axis, and Y on the row shelf, which creates the Y-axis. And then I've got this one data point up here in the corner. That's the lookup row. So this is just going all the way 0 to 800 and then 0 to 677 to create this 1 point. To map a background image, once I've kind of laid out this, and sometimes I'll fix the axis just to make sure it doesn't move on me. It's 677 and 0 to 800 on the X. This just kind of permanently sets it there. All right. So once I've laid this foundation, it's time to start looking up the coordinates. To do that, what I like to do is just annotate a point. And I'm going to leave it just X and Y. Those are the exact fields that I want. I'll blow this up a little bit so we can see it. Whenever you're doing a custom map, the decimals don't matter. So I'm going to change the default properties for both of these measures to no decimals, just to make it cleaner and easier to copy the coordinates. I'm also going to format this annotation so that I can put this dot exactly where I want it to be. All right. I'll make the line black so I can see it. All right. So those are the XY coordinates for third base. So all I do is I grab those coordinates. I'll type in third base. And it was 252 and 217. 252 and 217. I'm going to save it. It's not able to refresh unless you save the data source. I would personally do the first data point and then refresh it just to make sure I know what I'm doing. We should see a new data source appear. Let me make sure I saved it. Oh, I don't have the position on here yet. So right now there's no level of detail. That's why it's not seeing it. So if I add that to detail, and what am I missing? Oh gosh. Let me average those. This was the easy one too. There's my 1 point, but I didn't find my other one yet. Oh, it's there. This is what happens when you present in front of a lot of people. You start to panic a little bit. All right, I'm going to convert that to a circle and blow this up a little bit. This is exactly why I do the first one, just to make sure everything's kind of set up. So what you see is there's a point on third base and a point that is our lookup row. So we no longer need that lookup row. I could either delete it from my underlying data source, or I could right-click on it and exclude it to create a filter. If I was going to work with this data source long term, I'd probably end up deleting it from the data source, but I'll do that for now. And once I know it's working, I would just go around the diamond. I'm actually going to undo a couple spots. Oh, no, I'll just keep going. Annotate point. And I'll do second base. And it was 402 and 370. And maybe left field. I'm not going to do the whole diamond, but you will get the gist of it. All right, 198 and 477. 198, 477. Make sure I save, otherwise it won't know how to refresh. Right-click on the data source and refresh the data source as well. There we go. All right, now I can see them. All right, so that's mapping a custom background image. So think of the possibilities in your own real-life situation. You might have a campus map of some type, or maybe you work in an office building. You can, as long as you have a background image, you can do this exact same process to create this custom map for yourself. But wait, there's more maps. It's about as excited as I get. I apologize. So the next thing I'm going to show you is Mapbox Studio integration. Mapbox Studio came around with Tableau version 9.2. To show you this, I need to navigate out to the web real quick to Mapbox. This is well, they have a free version of it, or a free license, and it works, I think, for up to 50,000 views a month. And I feel like this is kind of underused. It's very easy. Like, this would be one you can start using right away. It came with 9.2. We're now on version 10.1. There was kind of a blip of excitement about this, but it kind of faded, I feel like. But it's a real easy way to make some custom maps. So I'm going to show you let me go back to my symbol map. And it's actually quicker just to make it again. So I'm going to double click state. All right, so I mentioned there's 3 different map styles right out of the box with Tableau. There's another 14 that you can access through Mapbox. So I've gone to this website, set up a free account. I'm just logging in. There's a place that keeps my styles. And to use this, I'm going to just click this button. It's fairly intuitive. Share, develop, and use. This is going to take me to a screen that's got this link that includes an API. It basically goes and makes sure you have an account, make sure you can use their maps. And this lives under Map, Background Maps, and Map Services. And I'm going to go to Add, choose Mapbox with Maps. It's fairly intuitive. You have to give it a name. And from here, it's just a simple paste of that API link that I took. I'm going to hit OK. And again, obviously, you need an internet connection to do this, but this is a completely customized map. So I came in here, I changed the colors, I changed the fonts, and this works. So this works very well. You can zoom all the way down into a very specific location. Let's see how well I know my geography. So I recognize this bend in the river. So here's the convention center, and I think we're about here in the Hilton. So the reason you need an internet connection for this, by the way, is as you zoom in, it can't possibly remember or store all of those images for all these places all around the world. I mean, we're zooming in all the way to a specific building. So what it does is it goes and essentially looks up a slide or a piece of your map so that you can zoom this far into it. But that's Mapbox Maps. Once you've copied and pasted a custom Mapbox map like that, you can go. There's also a classic tab that has those 14 additional styles that I was telling you about. So if you want a different feel than the 3 traditional ones that come with Tableau, it's very easy to get to these. One of them is pretty interesting to me. The definition of it is see if I can expand this, a painstakingly hand-drawn representation of the entire world. So again, this is something you could tell your boss. You know, you love your job so much, you stayed up sketching this all out for them. All right. And that's Mapbox Maps. Less maps is more maps, said no map ever. The next map I'm going to show you is Path Maps. This one is related to what Kyle was talking about with the visualization I created for my wife to kind of track our travels. It's called We're Not in Kansas Anymore. We do like to travel, and so we made this little tool where it draws a path around the trips. There's a drop-down filter. You can select any trip, and then it'll redraw the path to wherever we went. So I'm going to show you how to make that. To make path maps, the data has to be set up in a kind of a unique way. So Tableau comes, if it recognizes a city or geographic field, it comes with the latitude and longitude. If you want to do a path map, there's one catch with it. You have to look it up and have your own latitude and longitude, so the non-generated latitude and longitude. So this is just a snapshot of the underlying data. And there's just one important thing that I always forget, and as you saw, sometimes you forget all the steps. But you have to use the latitude and longitude in your data set versus the generated latitude and longitude. So longitude goes on the column shelf, and latitude goes on the row shelf. It'll draw this map for me. Right now, what that data point is the the average of every stop on that trip. So it just drew one data point. With path maps, the mark type is line, so I'm going to change it to line first. And then you have to tell it how to draw the path or connect the dots. And that, in this case, is overall stop. That was something in my underlying data. I said dot 1 is stop number 1, dot 2, stop number 2. There's a column called overall stop. It just tells Tableau what order to connect the dots in. And then to start to tie some of this stuff together, this is a dual axis map. So you not only have the lines, but you've got the dots. So to quickly show you that, I'm going to hold control again and to create a second occurrence of latitude. And now I can edit those maps independently of each other. So I'm going to navigate to the second mark shelf, change the mark type to circle, make this a dual axis map. And then I can size and do whatever I want to that second edition of that, kind of polish it up, make it look nice. Right. Just when you thought there were no more maps, Tableau goes and does something like this, provides more maps. All right, this is kind of the main event. This is some of the cooler maps that I've made with polygon maps, but all this stuff, again, is purely Excel and Tableau. This one looked at what body parts cause the most concussions in the NFL. This was cost of attending the World Series. This was a more in-depth map of Phillips Arena that got much more granular than the section one I showed above in the symbol map section. And this is the one I'm going to show you today. This is a polygon map of Levi's Stadium in Santa Clara, California. I did a viz that analyzed the cost of attending the Super Bowl this year, earlier in February. The data is set up very similarly to the path maps, except instead of latitude and longitude, it uses a similar setup to the baseball diamond, where I've got an X and a Y. So I'm going to open up a new, I'm going to try to just do a new file, just to get a little bit of a clean start. It's in Excel. Levi Stadium coordinates. And again, I'll show you what's already in there. I tend to like to get a little bit of a head start. So I've looked up one corner just to get us started here. But this is going to act just like the baseball diamond, where I go to background images, pick the data source I'm working with, find the image that I want to map. This one I just happen to remember is, that's X, is 750 wide by 500 tall. Okay. Hit OK. Hit OK. With polygon maps, you switch the mark type to polygon. And that should be a dimension. And then I'm going to put order on path. And X goes on X, and Y goes on rows. So we've laid the background. The axes are automated, so I'm glad this happened so I can show you what would happen if you don't fix the axes. It's easier to work with. I go in here, and I'm going to edit the axis and just permanently fix it to be the exact height and width of the image that I'm mapping. So it was 500 tall, so the axis will go 0 to 500, and it was 750 wide, so it'll go 0 to 750. All right, and then so just one step back, what I did there was the mark type. The only difference on what I've built on top of the other maps I've shown so far is I changed the mark type to polygon first, and then I have to tell Tableau how to connect the dots. It's going to connect the dots via this path. Okay. And if I wanted to add to that, just like I did with the baseball diamond, I'm going to annotate the point. I'll blow this up a little bit. And I'll change the default properties. Just so it's easier to read. One little trick, a lot of people ask how are these lines so smooth? You kind of have a head start. Because these dots are all connected, I've already got some of these points, right? If I look at this, the first dot for the next section is actually this top corner. So I could just copy that down. So I'm going to call this upper corner in my underlying data set. And it's going to have 4 stops on it. And I don't even have to annotate this point because I've already got it. I'm going to hover over. It's in the tooltip. It's 100 by 444. So 100 by 444 is the first one. The second one we've also got. It's 127 by 411. 127 by 411. And from here, I do need to annotate 2 new points. So I'm just going to drag my annotation to exactly where I want to map it. 241 by 449. 241 by 449. And on this one, I've got the x coordinate, because I want this to line up perfectly. It's right above this point. So 241 is the x. I don't even have to look that one up. But the y I will have to grab is 488. Make sure I save. Going to refresh my data source. And we have a new section. It looks like one, if I were to grab section and put it on color, you'd be able to see that these are different colors. I'll just do one more of these to show you, just one more kind of to get some muscle memory and remember it. So again, we already got the first 2 points here. So this is, I could just copy those. I'll just call this upper sideline. And this also has 4 points. And the first point I've already got. It's 241 by 488. The second point I've already got. It's 241 by 449. For the third point, I've got the y-axis this time, which is 449, just to make sure these line up perfectly. But I moved the cursor over so I can grab the x, which was 485. 485. And then one more point. This is a little bit slanted, so I need to grab a new x coordinate, but the y should be 488. And the x is 491. I'm going to save, go back here and refresh. And we see the third data point pop up. So that's how this was built, and the result's great. There's nothing glamorous about it. It was me in a coffee shop for about 2 hours. Looking up the points, but the result is great. Once you've got the map one time, you can encode it and use it in different ways over and over again. So I got this idea from some cooking shows. I need to make this smaller because I'm giving away my punchlines here. All right. I got this idea from those cooking shows where you see somebody, I always appreciate those because I can't cook whatsoever. So it just makes me laugh when I see them say, oh, just do this, throw it in the oven, and it comes out, and it's perfect. That's how your polygon maps will look, right? That's kind of what we just did. I showed you how to build 3 sections, and it comes out perfect. But here's how the polygon maps might look once I'm not here, right? At least that's what it would be if I was doing it or cooking. So. And then I got on this weird tangent. I was like, because I actually had to search for this. There was some pretty funny conversation around the office, actually. Because first I had a picture of, apparently I accidentally grabbed a chicken for the final, and then I had to go back. And I just got on this weird tangent, so I thought we'd have some fun looking through some other food fails that I came across while I was searching for some images. That one's all right. This one I think was the first one I ever saw. I really enjoyed that. That's exactly how my stuff would look if I try to cook it. And then this one, I'm sorry to scar you, but this was the last food fail. At first I thought that was a cake, and when I looked closely, it's actually like a meat pie. It's bacon for the hair and some type of other meat for the face. So I'll give you one more map. This one is pretty hard to mess up. This is from my friend and another Zen master, Matt Chambers. Probably heard of him. If you just Google this, you'll at least have one new map. So I want to show you how this is done. If you just Google hex maps, they're called, you can find this. This is pretty relevant for election season. I'm going to connect to a new data source. It's in Excel. He provides this file, just called hex map. All right. I'm going to jump into my data source. And it's very intuitive. He even, this time instead of X and Y, he names it column and row. So put column on columns, row on row. And then you do need to put state on detail. That's one step that might be easy to forget. But you're starting to see the map come together. With this type of custom XY coordinates, there is one extra step where you have to flip the Y-axis. But you can kind of see, if I were to fill in these circles, that you're starting to see the US, but it's upside down. That's because the Y-axis is upside down. So I'm going to right-click on the axis, edit axis, reverse that axis. Now you can see it coming together. If you've got a hex shape in your custom shape palettes, you can just change the mark type to shape and go find that hex shape. So I've got something called custom. I'm going to map the circle to the hex instead. That's the gist of it. And then from here, you would just kind of resize things to make it fit how you want, make it look nice. Maybe you want to put the abbreviations on the label. And maybe bring this up a little bit so that it fits nice. There you go. And that's a hex map. Probably seen quite a few of those this season. All right. So I think I made perfect time, at least the recommended time. We're going to leave about 15 or 20 minutes. But one more time, I want to point out this resource. If there are any maps that you were not familiar with, that you want a step-by-step tutorial on how to do, it lives here. Reminder that this has been accepted for publication and that I will have to take it down. You can also subscribe there if you want an update on when it will be available to purchase an early release. The book's supposed to come out in early 2017, but if you want to buy an early release and kind of keep up with it, you can already do that at tableau201.com. There's also a survey that they want everybody to take. It should be right in your app. We would really appreciate if you could do that for us. And then I'm going to leave this screen up. It has my personal contact information if you need anything. But there is about 10, 15 minutes for questions if anybody has them. Yes, question. Kyle, do you have the walk around? Oh. Is it down in the back?
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. Instead of using Mapbox, are you able to use other platforms like ArcGIS Online?
There are other tools. I'm not familiar with many of the other options that are out there. I use Mapbox because it's free, those 12 styles, and it's very easy. Mm-hmm. But there are some other map services in here. If you haven't come across these, particularly WMS servers. I've never used that. But there are other custom maps that you can do. Yeah.
Have you done any of the custom geocoding stuff?
The only custom geocoding I've done is with the new custom territories in Tableau that come with version 10. You can simply highlight if you're not familiar with this, in Tableau 10, you can now just highlight whatever region or combination of, say, zip codes that you're interested in, and you just create a group. That's how custom territories are done. And that's to the extent of custom territories outside of this custom. I mean, this was very custom, but no custom territories in terms of zip codes outside of Tableau.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Can you tell us a little bit about Esri and Tableau and what we'll see this coming year?
I cannot. I might be able to tell you there's a developers meeting on Thursday that I should learn more, but not at this time. I think it's getting passed down. And then there's a question up front, too.
Yeah, I know today they were talking about shapefiles. It might be worth doing a Google search on FME, Feature Manipulation Engine, built by Safe Software. If you go to Google, shapefile to Tableau,
Okay.
they got a free tool. You just drop a shapefile in there, spits out a TDE. That gets around
Okay.
the whole order and all that kind of stuff. Because if you go on a lot of government open data sites, shapefiles are pretty abundant.
You think that would be a good resource for everybody? What did you say? Shapefile to...
Yeah, shapefile to Tableau, FME.
I think the mic was breaking up a little bit.
Yeah, throw FME in that search there too. FME, Feature
FMU?
Manipulation Engine. Oh, FME.
FME.
Yeah. Yeah, there you go. Safe Software, the one
Safe.com.
right there, free converter. That's really
All right.
helpful
All right.
for Esri people.
I'm trusting you. That's not your product, right? So, sure, check that out.
Hi. It looked like where you had the football player, you had some rounded surfaces. How
Yeah.
are you filling those shapes?
Yeah, good question. And actually, it's kind of funny. Let's see how quickly I can get to it. Like I said, there are better ways. You can, in tools like Alteryx, for example, if you've got a vector file format, you can make a truly round shape. This is all done manually out in Excel. So it's a 24-point polygon. So it appears to be rounded, but it's actually 24 points that were looked up. And the reason I want to show you this and reiterate that there's nothing glamorous about this, because I really do hope you guys got some inspiration on things you thought maybe looked cool or didn't think you could do, but definitely can do. So, by the way, all of my entire portfolio, I take a lot of pride in letting everyone download every single viz in it. That's how I learned Tableau. I credit my success in Tableau with Tableau Public. So it's really important to me to let people learn from it the way that I did. So any of these that you see, you can download and look under the hood. So one of the things you can look under the hood on is the background image. And you're going to laugh at this. So if I were to not wash it out, there's my background image. So I knew nobody would see this. I don't know how well you can see it from back there. But I took just a silhouette, and the rounded head is a 24-point polygon that I floated over the top. So I had a place to point my mouse to grab the 24 points. I just zoomed in really far, grabbed those points. You can see some grid lines. That just helped me make it more symmetrical than I could have otherwise just by blind eyeing it. So I knew that this was exactly his left side, exactly his right side, make it look a little bit cleaner. But this was the underlying image. You can even see I left some kind of debris in the screenshot because it didn't matter. I just needed to see the underlying points, grab the points, and then map it out.
I was just going to add with the shape files, stay tuned. There's some stuff coming. So there's no need to do FMEs.
Just double checking, there was no question, right? Got a little awkward there, but I can deal with it.
Hi, I may have missed this because I had to take a phone call, but I saw distances that you calculated between lats and longs.
Yeah, there's probably a better tool for that. I very dorkily looked them up. And the reason I did was because I couldn't simply put all the coordinates into some type of calculator that looked at latitude and longitude, because some of it was via cruise ship or a train. And especially cruise ship, it's a different measurement. And so I took the nautical miles, converted it to miles. Yeah. I was trying to make it as...
Because there is a converter that we use in our line of business where it uses the radar engineering equation of Haversine as the crow flies over, and it does a calculation taking into account the terrains and stuff, and it becomes important in some.
Yeah, I'd be
this was
interested to
just a
hear-
travel one, but in some
Yeah.
industries it becomes very important.
Well, especially if
terms of-
you've got, I was only looking up maybe 5 stops at a time, but I could see especially if it's thousands of locations.
Exactly. Yep.
On that point, I think there's 2 things that can be really helpful with that. One is actually on Tableau Help is the greater circle formula,
Yeah.
which you can use to just create a Tableau calculation that'll calculate the distance between 2 latitudes and longitudes. So if
Yeah.
you've got 1,000,000 latitudes and longitudes, you want to do distance, you can just Google that. It's on Tableau Help. The other is as the crow flies, yeah, straight line. It's not perfect.
Right.
The other is there's a bulk latitude and longitude generator. If you just Google bulk latitude longitude, you can upload a CSV with up to 1,000 or 5,000. Any more than that, it kind of chunks and slows down. But if you're a coder, you can actually hit the Google API for up to 5,000. But that's kind of, once you get past that, you probably want to buy something. But
Right.
those are all really helpful.
Cool. Thanks for sharing that. Going once, going twice. Well, I'm going to hang out after if you have any questions you want to ask me specifically or want to connect, but I appreciate the time, everyone. Hopefully see you later.